My name's Josh Johnson. I'm a Lincoln, Nebraska-based artist currently. I'm originally from Minnesota, and I've been living on the Great Plains for about a decade at this point. I'd say my work right now is definitely trying to find a balance between kind of like a collage aesthetic and how I'm cobbling things together and using a lot of secondhand materials or things that have had a past life and synthesizing them into new forms, and that the form's relationship to minimalism and kind of a lot of blankness, quietness, like areas of pause and silence, and how I'm relating that to I guess really how we think about memory within our mind's eye and things that we hold there, and we can only focus in on certain areas for very long, and the rest of it becomes more either blurry or open or vacant. And that's kind of, I guess, how I'm abstracting representational things in one regard, and then also kind of like letting the materiality of what I'm using feed into that as well. I've been kind of working with this idea, the body of work of distance learning for 3 years now, and it's based off of two environments being bridged, one at hand and the other remembered. And initially it came from these fabricated rocks in Lincoln, Nebraska along the Antelope Creek bike path that were very reminiscent of a place that is not Lincoln, Nebraska, and it made me recall being in the Badlands of South Dakota. Taking that prompt and kind of like using all these other interests in my studio, as far as like fabrication, carving, and joinery, taking these two different things, something that's at hand and something that's a memory, and sticking them together to make this thing that is like this invisible equation. I don't quite know what it looks like until I start working with it. So there's something familiar and something off at the same time. People can kind of recognize things, but they can't place themselves perfectly. So there's like this slippage between what you know and what you don't know. Next to me here is more of a completed Mount Rushmore, sort of. At least it's closer to the original reference. Washington's portrait is the most well rendered, while the rest of the presidents are covered up by what appears to be drapery or a tarp, as if it's not quite ready for viewing quite yet. And I'm referring to this piece, right now its working title is Manifestation. Kind of referencing off this idea of like all the problems with manifest destiny, but also like something manifesting itself in front of you in bits and pieces. So having to deal with vision, that's something that's kind of like connecting all this work to. I should say that the piece that's on the floor is titled Vision Quest. And then the final piece that's the largest, kind of more tableau piece, I've titled The Seer. And there's a little bit of a kind of like mystical quality to it, in that it's kind of arcane in a way, or I don't know, I don't want to say supernatural, but it seems like it has a specific purpose that isn't quite apparent. But then also thinking about how people view things around them, especially right now through their camera phones. So I've constructed, like these viewfinders, and it's kind of about focusing in on certain aspects of Mount Rushmore. And the piece that's presented on this idea of kind of like a selfie stick almost is a part of the original rock face that I'm really like drawn to, and kind of like wanting to see a grimace or a face in it. And maybe it's more because it's, I don't know, upset about what happened to it, having these references of presidents attached to it, or I don't know, kind of just like letting that dictate the rest of it. So yeah, I guess the other thing that I'm thinking about, like within like this kind of like vision, is perspective, forced perspective. Mount Rushmore is really kind of you can't experience it like an object because you can't get close to it. There's a center where you're viewing it from that's kind of a monument, so you're getting this forced perspective. You know it's a place, but you have to experience it as a picture. So I'm trying to do some of these things where I'm merging physical space, like how you would interact with an object, with pictorial space, where you're kind of like thinking about it more as this picture that you can't access, and the back and forth between those types of perception.